Yo, this hot, this the spot. There it is, pod.com. We're interviewing the best comedians, so tune in quick and get your ears receiving them. We talking about life and life to stream right to you, from the microphone right to your home, dude. Side note, this might get embarrassing, but no, don't sweat, yo, cause there it is.
Welcome to There It Is podcast. A podcast to help you find your inspiration. I'm your host, Jason Farr. On the one.
On the one, y'all. Don't you hear this old school joint?
I know I usually say let's do this, but this is a very Prince-inspired episode. And not quite a pop talk. It's a pop life talk because it's a Prince-inspired episode that has girlfriend of the show, Justina,
hey.
and thank you, and best friend of the show, Rob.
Hey.
And it's a special Prince-inspired episode because girlfriend of the show, Justina, got me the best birthday gift you can give a Prince lover, which is a surprise trip to Minneapolis. To visit best friends and go to Paisley Park. That is, for those who don't know, Paisley Park is the compound. Is it fair to call it a compound?
Call it a compound, but not like in a
Not
weird,
like a
not
weird-
like Jim Jones compound.
Yeah, not a David Koresh sort of compound.
Yeah, I would say like an excellent facility
Yes.
and living space.
Right, and that's where Prince recorded a number of things. The building was made, created. I don't know. That's not the right
Constructed.
word. Constructed.
There it is.
And there it is. Podcast and newsletter.
On one.
And on the one.
On the one.
And so anyway, it was constructed in 1987. Prince wanted to have this space in Minneapolis, so he didn't have to go to L.A. or New York to record. And there's also a sound stage in there, and we took a VIP tour of it. And so, for one, big thanks to Justina. I mean, I had no idea. I guess we should post the video of me. I don't know, maybe we could post the video of me receiving the gift and crying.
We're going to Minneapolis and we're going to Paisley Park.
What? No way.
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
Okay, I can't even wrap my head around that. For real?
Yeah.
Baby. That's amazing. Did
Yeah.
you tell Rob?
We've been planning it for months.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, I knew you'd come.
Thank you,
You're
baby.
welcome.
Anyway, we came up on Saturday morning, and we go back. As you're listening to this, we are heading back to New York City. So, a whirlwind trip, very inspiring trip, and we're going to talk about what it was like being in Paisley Park on this tour and how it impacted us. I took notes. Previous guest of the podcast, Elrinthia Carter, has gone on the tour, and she said, because they lock your phone, she said she wished she had a notebook and had taken notes. So we made it a point to do that. I brought my notebook, my There It Is notebook, not quite in stores yet. Stay tuned. And I took notes, and then eventually we got our phones back and we could take some pictures. We'll have those in the bio on thereitispod.com.
I took a notebook too, but I saw how much you were writing down, and I was like, he's got it covered. I don't need to write down anything.
And I cannot read or write.
Yeah, so ultimately it was on Jason.
So it was a really special trip. Let's go from the drive there, because Rob he's 25 minutes from Paisley Park, and Rob said make a Spotify playlist of the Prince songs that you want to hear going to Paisley Park. And I made one, and I gotta say I nailed it because there's a song called Paisley Park from Around the World in a Day, and maybe on the YouTube version, a small clip of the lyric, Paisley Park is in your heart is playing right now.
Paisley Park is in your heart.
If we can clear it, I don't know if that'll work out. The Prince Estate may not allow that on YouTube, understandable. But nevertheless, when that song was on is when we got to Paisley Park. So I nailed the playlist, quite frankly.
And you started crying.
And I started crying as soon as I saw it, which Rob knew was going to happen.
I told him to prepare himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I brought a kind of a purple gingham handkerchief with me because it's the only purple one I have. It came in handy. And I actually did a cry count.
Really?
In my notebook.
Yeah, it's in his notebook.
Oh
I saw
my
that.
gosh.
I mean, I can't read, but I did see that.
Oh yeah, you could.
It's the very first thing I wrote in there, and it's 5 cries.
Five
Got the
cries,
5 cries.
including the driving up one.
Including the driving up
Yeah.
one. And I'm sorry, everyone, that purists out there, that I didn't get to 7 cries. In Paisley
that
Park,
would've
it
been
would have
good.
been poetic, but it's not what happened.
All 7 and we'll watch them fall. No one in the whole universe will ever compare. So don't cry.
But yeah, I took notes and just like some of the songs I heard over their intercom, just because I thought that was sort of interesting. But of course, like what the experience was like in the different rooms. Let's start with just as soon as we got in there. This is a quick clip of us walking up, and then we'll go into what it was like walking into Paisley Park. First impressions?
Oh, it's awesome. What are your first impressions?
Well, I've already cried once. Just seeing it. I'm just staring at the front of the building now. And I'm looking at the love symbol. And it's just beautiful. Rob, you've been here. So this part isn't new to you. You just need to get out of the cold.
No coat check.
Make sure you put that in the podcast.
It is 14 degrees.
Yes. We had to wait outside in the cold because they only let a group in at a time to go over the security protocols.
And they didn't check coats, so
And
we
no
left the
coat
coats
check.
in the car.
And when we walked in, it was cool. It was cool, and then we had to wait outside the atrium.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, as soon as you
And
walk
that
in, it's
atrium,
beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, there's a mural of his eyes looking down on you, welcoming you to the facility, and a bunch of his, I guess, platinum record things on the wall, like a ton. A musicology sort of mural. It's like a bunch of tickets.
Which I found that really interesting. That was one of the first things I remember noticing, because this is my second time going on the tour, but this was, I went on the, as I called it, the Basic Bitch tour the first time, and this time I went
The
on
irresistible basic bitch.
but so, but I think I maybe have remembered it. I may have told you that after I went there, but there was a mural for the Musicology tour, and I thought it was really interesting that was the tour that he was advertised. You know, that they put up front. I think it was
probably,
it's
not like Purple Rain.
And I
or
gathered
something,
from what Sharon, our guide, said, I think that wall was probably there when he was there, like when he was still with us. And so I think that probably is a tour that really meant a lot to him.
I think so, because, I mean, I know at the time when Musicology came out, it was 2004, it was another, what they called a comeback album for him. And he always lamented that because he said, I haven't gone anywhere. And it's true, because if you look at, the man was incredibly prolific. I'm currently listening to the story of Sign of the Times, which is the Prince Estate podcast about the making of that album. And when we say prolific, it feels like that's not even a good enough term for it, because he made so much music, and he was putting out an album a year at least, because even a year where he didn't put out an album, the next year he had 2 or 3 disc albums that would come out, and or 2 albums came out that year altogether, you know, and it kind of makes up for the years that he didn't have something out. And that's not even counting the music that he wrote and produced for other artists like The Time or, you know, Vanity 6 or whoever, or just gave away or just put in the vault. he created he has to have thousands upon thousands of work in his vault. And so it was interesting that he did put musicology up there over, like I said, Purple Rain or something like that. But I guess that one was really special to him because it was a you're not going anywhere again sort of moment for him, I feel like. Like, you know, I understand he lamented being referred to as a comeback, but he was so deeply in the conscience at that point with like there was no need for him to come back after that. That he was always just going to be this special icon in America's eyes from that point on. So maybe he picked up on that a little bit, but we'll move out of the atrium and go into what was half living space, half office space.
Yeah.
So in this area, there is a big tiled floor with the symbol unpronounceable symbol, some kind of called it a glyph, that was on the floor in the middle next to a kitchen that was made to look sort of like a diner.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and he would host people there. If he had friends over, they would go in there and eat, or they would watch a DVD or something like that. But we saw the DVDs.
We saw the DVDs. I was quite obsessed because there was Steel Magnolias.
Oh, yeah.
There was Matrix Reloaded. There was
Divergent.
Yeah, I was like, man, that's just a
Not the movies I would have thought he would have laid out. And we say that it was the movies he laid out because they tried to keep as much as it was before he left.
Like his office was
right.
Like
his office was
untouched.
You get the impression that he probably left those DVDs there, and that's been untouched as well. I don't even know if the people who work there use that kitchen. But
it doesn't seem like they do.
No,
doesn't. It really
I don't
doesn't.
think so, yeah.
And this space pretty much goes unused. There are a bunch of different rooms that they have albums. Like there's the Love Sexy room and the
Sign of the
Sign of the Times room, which is really cool.
Yeah.
They had this drum kit in there, and a bunch of. If you look at the cover of that album, there are a lot of flowers on the front of the stage, and they had that drum kit on a little stage with flowers in front of it. And it was beautiful. We couldn't take pictures at this point because they had locked their phone by this point. There was there a Purple Rain room that was? There was a controversy.
No, well, Purple Rain was in Studio
C.
C.
Right. So what was that room to the left of?
Was it Controversy? Diamonds and Pearls.
Was it? And that was where the Honer was.
The Honer was outside. It was in the hallway. So it wasn't actually in the room. And so when we say the Honer, it's his famous Telecaster like guitar. That when you watch like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame solo on While My Guitar Gently Weeps, that's that guitar.
That
was that guitar. Yeah, when you watch like
the lift and go
when he plays "Let's Go Crazy" and "Purple Rain," that's that guitar.
We are gathered here today to get through this thing called life.
Wow.
I mean, so that was kind of like one of his signature, always with him guitars. Besides, like the cloud guitars,
right? And seeing that guitar was my second cry of the tour.
Yep.
Because I didn't see it when we walked past it. I just didn't see it, and because I was looking at everything else, and this is where you could see the doves in their cages, and they
have like it's like skylights that are like pyramids.
Yeah,
and so it's just a really even though it was overcast at first, it was a really well lit room, and kind of like
a lot of natural light.
It's definitely the feature that draws you in.
Yeah, and he wanted it specifically that way, and made sure he got someone who could do it. Apparently, so I didn't see it because it was all that, so I didn't see the Honer. And then when I turned around, she said, "All right, you'll have like 6 minutes," which I was like, "Why wasn't it 7 minutes?" But she was like, "You have 6 minutes in here." So we bounced around. And I saw that Honer, and I went. I stopped me cold in my tracks.
I thought I called you over to me.
You may have, but I didn't because I hadn't seen it. So I saw it. And was like, what? And just started to cry, and stood there and stared at it and saw like the scratches on it and the dents and stuff was just like so beautiful, and like to see it not pristine was really cool actually. And also in this same area, the same hallway basically, is his office, his private office. And we could go in that. And they kept that, as Rob said, the same, untouched. And it's roped off. You can walk in there. I don't know if you've been to the Biltmore Estate, listener, but in Asheville, North Carolina. But there is, it's sort of like when you go there and it's like someone's house and they have the area roped off and the bed's off in the side or whatever the room is. It's like that, where you can walk into the room, but you can't go deep into it. And there is a presence in that room. It is designed and decorated in such a way that you would expect Prince to. And not, I mean, it's like hard to explain. Like you might say that to some people and they'll be like, oh, so it's like lace and it's like, no, it's very noble.
But he had a lot of like custom made pieces. I mean, obviously like that's a lot of the theme of the places. There was a ton of, from the outfits to we'll talk about the other room, but like very custom made things, and but also like I mean obviously like the furniture was very custom made.
Yeah, he had a cool like this desk that was sort of like something you would see in like Batman or something like that. Like, and then he had this cool
it was
chair.
Like Bruce Wayne's office.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Hey, Ducky, let me stick the 7-inch in the computer. Hey, got the show up, get out.
Like, it's like, it was so, I don't know, it was super cool. And he had this cool chair. And there was just something about being in that space and just knowing he was in it and in it so often that, I don't know, it really touched me. And I probably got a cry in there. But I would, you know, he has his family pictures on there and these flowers that are off to the side. And there are all these books. And there was one big book that's called Forced into Glory. And I wrote it down so I could look it up and maybe see what it's about, maybe even get it to read. They told us not to touch anything, and it's kind of obvious that you don't touch things. Like we've all been to a museum before, right? But it would have been hard to touch them. You would have to go over the rope to touch something. But I couldn't help myself. I had to touch the light switch.
Oh, you did?
I did touch the light switch on the way out because I was like, I just want to touch something that Prince touched.
Oh, that's funny.
And to me, it was more meaningful to touch something like that than like the piano almost, because, you know, unless I'm going to sit and play the piano, but like you touch a light switch, it's like, well, he definitely touched this at some point. Like I just wanted to be in there and for him to be in me, like in spirit. And when I walked out of the room and checked out the other stuff, I like ran back to the office just to be in that presence again. It was really inspiring because being in that room, that was probably the first moment of the tour where I was really overwhelmed with how specific he was and how he was going to conduct himself and live his life. And it was really inspiring for me to see that side of him, because it makes me want to live not high on the hog like that, or like, you know, like this elegant royal life, but to live so specifically and intentionally.
It's kind of funny you say like royal life, because it felt like, and they talked about the space, but it's like, it's not, and well, I don't want to step on your toes, but like, it's not a gaudy place.
Right.
No.
Right.
It's not, there's nothing like ornate about it. I mean, there's some of the furniture is interesting, and obviously some of the clothes are unbelievable. But like, there's nothing like, it's not like walking through Versailles or something.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's not like, it would feel like an ego trip.
Right.
It doesn't feel like, because this was, at one point, it was a functioning space for other people.
It was an office.
They had like office, I mean, you could like be somebody working in this building that had nothing to do with Prince.
They had work to do.
Well, they said like 2013 or 14, he moved back in and it became solely about all of his personal endeavors. But before that, I mean, you know, you could be, I mean, obviously, there's lots of production stuff that happened.
Yeah,
there.
REM recorded.
Yeah, people record there. Yeah, so I mean, it's not like this bow to Prince. It's not a pyramid.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That's a really good point. What were you about to say, Justina?
There were doves.
There were
Yes,
doves.
there were doves. I
Important.
did.
If you mentioned that already, I didn't tell, but there were doves.
There were doves.
He said
Yeah,
birds, but he didn't say doves. So.
yeah, there was a bird cage. Yeah, so I kept looking at them because when Sharon, our tour guide, started talking about the space, she did say like there are doves up there. You may not, they might be hidden away for a second. I looked for them, and I actually did see their white doves up there moving around, and I saw one of them, and I was like, okay, this is cool, getting to see the doves. But that was in the living space that we could only see into from here. We didn't get to go up there for obvious reasons, so we don't know what any of that was like, but we could see the staircase that led up there, and we could see the bird cage, and there was some room, I don't know if it was a closet or what, but there's like a window to the room, and you could see some outfits in the window, but I just don't know what else is on the other side of that wall. So we left this room and went into Studio B, I believe. But first it was actually the Galaxy room, which you can see in Prince's interview on Oprah from the late 90s when Emancipation was coming out.
What is this?
Studio B.
Studio B.
For Black
Well, I
Blood.
must say, it's just like your mind. Very interesting.
I'll take that as a compliment.
It's a super cool room. He said it was his favorite room in the whole building. And it was a super cool room. And purple room that looks like a galaxy. And then we walk through there and we go into Studio B, which was modeled after Electric Ladyland in New York City, which I thought was pretty dope. We got to listen to some music in there, and they left some things as he left them, like
Incense.
Incense, a picture of his
candles.
dad, some candles, and this cool, it doesn't work anymore, but this cool neon light that said Prince on the bottom, but it was like a caricature of Prince, and I tried to draw it real quick, and I didn't do a great job drawing it, but I drew it real quick to just remember it. But this little,
I'm pretty close.
Yes.
That almost looks like he's a part of Kiss.
He
Yes.
does. Yeah. I didn't do the mustache right.
We will put this up on the enhanced version.
Yeah,
All
I'll try to redraw it too, so it looks better. But we were in there, and there were a few instruments up, and I went and looked at those, and Rob looked. They were cool. It was like a heart shaped.
There was that he had a Daisy Rock guitar, and if you know anything about guitars, Daisy Rocks aren't like the best thing in the world.
Right, but he just
but
liked.
Then
he was apparently in Japan.
Yeah, it was like
and
this
just saw it and wanted it.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
I'm sure
but
he never
I think
played
that
it.
was the room that had the guitar. Wasn't that the one from Third Eye Girl?
Yes.
That was his
he used that guitar a lot. I guess on SNL.
Yeah, he used it on SNL.
When he was with them.
It was a semi hollow body.
Yeah, cool looking guitar. I'm sure we can find it and put it in the enhanced version on YouTube right now. But hopefully there's a pic of that.
Yeah.
And we're in that space, and they said, Sharon said, he has a state-of-the-art set of speakers in here, and we're going to listen to a demo of a song.
Was it Welcome to America?
No, it wasn't. So it was a song that was after, because Welcome to America was 2010, but unreleased.
Oh, okay.
Something rock and roll, right?
It was, let me find it, because I haven't heard this album yet. Okay, so first I'll just say, in Studio B, the Ballad of Dorothy Parker, I think she said was the first thing recorded in there.
Yeah, it was the first thing recorded
which
in
is
there.
one of the songs I put in that playlist that we listened to driving to Paisley Park. So, again, I nailed it.
Dorothy was a waitress on the promenade, dishwater blonde, tall and fine. This is a planet of Dorothy Parker.
But Black Album was in there, and NEWS. But we listened to a demo of Rock and Roll Love Affair, which is from Third Eye Girl. I guess
Rock and
was
Roll
it?
Yeah, okay.
I haven't heard that song, so it was my first time hearing it. The only reason I don't want to go into a long-winded reason why I haven't listened to it yet. I just haven't listened to his last few albums yet. But it was my first time hearing the song.
She He believed in fairy tales and princes. He believed in rock and roll. Rock, love, yeah.
So they played the demo version of it, and it was so... It felt like he was in the room because those speakers were so good.
Yeah.
It is the best sounding speakers I've ever heard.
And
in my
I don't
life.
like pick up on that kind of thing at all. Like when you were recording stuff, like you're like, can you hear that? I'm like, no, but like that
You could hear
definitely
everything.
sounded
Just like
special. And
his
was-
hand on the guitar, like it felt so present.
It was the best sounding speaker I've ever heard in my life. Like I told Jason as soon as they were done, I was like, I want to just sit in this room and listen to music.
Oh yeah.
That's
Me
all
too.
I would just like to do that.
Because it's like you're in the music.
You're in
Yeah.
it, yeah. Because like a lot of times, if you're listening on like over-the-air headphones or something like that, the sound is like in the middle of your head. But this reversed it and made it feel like you were in the music as opposed to the music's in your head. It was so.
I could even what I was trying to
intimate.
point out to you too, like stuff was in stereo, so you could hear like when stuff came in the left speaker versus the right speaker.
Right.
I was trying to point that out to you too when it was happening because it was just
Oh.
like, oh my god, let's listen to that sound.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of stuff they were listening to when they were recording it.
Right.
So,
Oh gosh, I just can't believe just being able to listen to things on that. Oh, and he had such great intonation in his musicianship that I don't know, you could hear all of that. That's why you have to be a really good player for good speakers like that because it'll pick up on every subtle thing that you do wrong.
Yeah.
And he was so good. But we listened to that, and then she played the full version that was the album version. It was so interesting to hear that dichotomy from a demo to the fully produced thing. And I didn't say this to the group, but when they played it, I said they should just take every demo that's this fully produced and make an album of that and release those because I would love to just hear that.
yeah.
I mean, it still felt super layered and well produced, even though it was just a demo.
Well, and the other thing too, what she was explaining to us was, when Prince was doing a lot of this stuff, one of the reasons why he had Paisley Park and how it was set up to function is if he had an idea, he wanted to go record it, and if you know about Prince, he could play pretty much any instrument he could get his hands on. So he would count himself in, and he would play the drums, and then he would go back and he'd do the bass, and then he'd add the guitars and the keyboards on these demos. So I think that demo was mostly him.
Yeah.
And so you could hear how he did that too.
Yeah.
And he went back and so he kind of it starts off, and you can see how he started off the drums, and then he probably went back and re-recorded all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty amazing to hear that process as well.
Yeah, and he could do that since he was 19. That's how he got on.
Yeah, that's how he got
on
started.
Warner.
Yeah.
Because he said he wanted to produce himself, and he wanted to prove that to them. So he took them into the studio, and the guy who was talking about this in the podcast I was referencing earlier said that as soon as he laid down the drums, he was like, "This kid clearly knows what he's doing." In the studio, okay, fine. And then he laid down the bass, and this guy didn't want Prince to feel like he was auditioning for them. So he said, it's obvious that he knows what he's doing and can do this himself. So he's like, okay, good, that's enough. And Prince looked at him and said, I have to finish. And just finished the whole thing he was trying to record there. And that he's so driven and so focused, and that was one of the themes of the tour, which was that he would have an idea and he'd get so excited about it that he would just go work on it and work on it all night and be there,
Yeah, if he had an idea, he could just go there and do it himself. And
Yeah.
I think that was, and so that's why I think it's a little bit different than something like a Neverland Ranch or Graceland. It's why it's so different. It's because you do have that aspect of this is somewhere where he lived and he had a lot of his treasured items, but this is still a functioning studio.
Yeah.
And a state-of-the-art studio. And so he set himself up with something that's so one of a kind where he could be, pretty much do whatever he wanted. He could rehearse bands there, he could film movies there, and he could, take his time to record this, the music and know what he's doing.
Yeah. It was incredible. We also got to listen to a song from Artificial Age in that room that's called The Breakdown.
Listen to me closely as the story unfolds. Keep breaking me down, down, down.
And we saw the original notes in Studio B from My Name is Prince and Call My Name. two great tracks.
In the beginning, God made the sea on the seventh day. He made me. My name is Prince, and I am Funky, the one and only.
Call My Name is from Musicology, and that's a special album just for our friend group because you, me, and Jim saw the Musicology tour. We saw a show at the Musicology tour. And that was one of the songs I remember us all really getting into.
Heard your voice this morning, calling out my name. Just can't stop writing songs about you. I love you so much. Call my name, Prince.
So it was cool to see just the handwritten notes in his notebook for that song. So we moved out of Studio B. That was the control room.
And we went into the actual
and then
studio.
we went to the actual studio. And this was special because as soon as we walk in there are two pianos. One's black and one is purple. And it's one that's been talked about a lot publicly because it was one that he had commissioned and he wanted it to go on tour with him. It was a tour that he finished and then died shortly after. And they didn't have the piano ready for that tour. But it was in there. He got to play it a little bit before he passed, but it was like the week before he passed is when he like did a public display of it. And that's sitting there. And then there's also a cloud guitar. Yeah. And Rob, you looked at it and were like, how fast will they shoot me if I just jump over the rope?
Yeah,
and
I was so close. I mean, the fact that I got to be so close to one of his guitars he touched. Yeah.
And be photographed with it.
Yes, there is a photo.
So that was the special thing, and that's going in the bio on thereitispod.com.
And we got to play ping pong on his ping pong table.
And there,
that was awesome.
So that's what they put in the studio, and we played ping pong on Prince's ping pong table a little bit.
Yeah, I liked that a lot. And we were really good, so it was like kind of showing off too.
You had it going on.
And I was taking so many notes. And people who were other people on the tour were like, "Are you a journalist?" And I was like, "No,
just a nerd.
I just love Prince.
Nerd.
Yeah,
I just wanted to do this." Someone else asked later in Studio B, a guy was like, "Yeah, you're taking a lot of notes," and I was like, "Yeah, a friend went on this tour and said you should." And he was like, "Oh, okay." He was that dude who knew so much too about. He must have been someone who was familiar with audio equipment because he seemed to know what a lot of things were.
I know which one was that guy with like
older guy.
Oh, I don't know if I didn't notice him. No.
I
don't pay attention to peons.
That's right.
But yeah, it was it's interesting because it's like I barely talked to anyone else in there because we're all just listening.
Mm-hmm.
But we're all experiencing this amazing thing together. We didn't really experience it so much together emotionally. But it was great being in there. And then we went into Studio A, and that was the larger of the two, and they said that was like the center of his recording universe because he preferred that studio. Love Sexy, Batman, Diamonds and Pearls, Emancipation, and more were all recorded in there. There were a bunch of instruments in Studio A. Mm-hmm. It was a massive space. And we couldn't go into the control room, which is where he spent a lot of time, but we could look in there and see it.
I was a little disappointed we couldn't go in the control room.
Yeah, that's one of the things they want to keep pristine, and I get it. But gosh, it would have been nice to have sat in there for a minute.
Yeah.
And walked out of there, and but we did hear an unfinished song called Rough Enough, and that was super cool on those speakers too. Mm-hmm. And was it in there or in Studio B that they played the song when he was maybe going to collaborate with Bonnie Raitt? They played some song, and it was like, I Need a Good Man song or something like that.
I don't remember where that one was.
I don't either. I didn't write that part down. I just remembered it. But
I remember that was because the song we listened to was like one of the last ones you recorded.
Yeah, Rough Enough. Mm-hmm. And it sounded great. Man, unfinished, but it sounded so good. And then we walk out of there, and there's a mural, and it had people on one side that he was influenced by, your Stevie Wonders, your Carlos Santana, Jimi Hendrix, And then on the other side were the artists that he felt he influenced and was really proud of. And so it was like The Time and Wendy and Lisa.
You seem to rise instead when you're headed for the waterfall.
Sheila E.
She wears a long fur coat of mink. Even in the summertime, she wants to leave the glamorous life, without a love, it ain't much.
And even The Deal, which I thought was pretty cool.
'Cause every time I close my eyes, I think of you. I think of you on 2 occasions. That's day and night.
And we walked from there into Studio C. And Studio C was a place that they did a lot of dance rehearsals.
And basketball.
And basketball, which is unreal that they played basketball in there.
And
You know,
that
I
was
didn't
the
say
big-
I didn't say this, but you think maybe that's where he and Charlie Murphy played basketball?
It must have been if that's where they did the basketball. And that story is true that they played basketball together.
This bores me. Is anyone up for a game of basketball? How about you and your friends versus me and the revolution?
So I was like, this nigga must be joking. So they come out, right? And I look at them, and they still got on the same shit they be wearing at the club. I said, hey, you know what? You know what we're gonna call this? The shirts against the blouse. I kind of learned something that day. Don't never judge a book by its cover. This cat could ball, man. He was crossing cat, like I crossed me up. He was getting rebounds like Charles Barkley, snatching it down.
Shoot the J.
Good. In your face, Charlie Murphy.
Good.
It was a landslide victory.
Game. Blouses.
Freddie Murphy has confirmed it too.
The story about Prince challenging you to a game of pickup basketball that he told on Chappelle.
That is totally and absolutely accurate. Prince had on that outfit that was in the Kiss video.
Don't have to be beautiful to turn me on.
Where he had the little like short shirt and the leather jacket and the buttons and stuff. He had that outfit on.
Just need your body, baby, from dusk till dawn.
A little gold chain around his waist. A waistlet, I think. He had on the waistlet. And he was like, hey, y'all want to play some basketball? He was like, what the you want to play some basketball? So my brother was like, all right, it's going to be shirts against blouses. And the blouses won. They beat out.
And I guess that's also where Torre played him as well when he played.
You played basketball with Prince? Tell us about that.
And this is when he was not called Prince. He was just going by the symbol. And like to call him Prince was like, huge thing. So I'm like, yo, I got my ball. What's up, man? And he's like, okay. So he tells his man, get out my sneakers. And then I was like, oh shit, this is about to happen. Because there's a hoop. The stage is like here. And then you walk around and there's a hoop and a little space to play indoors. It's me and Prince 2-on-2 against the photographer and the bass player. And I see him wide open, so I pass the ball to him real quick, right? And the ball's coming at him, and he doesn't see it coming because he's made such a good cut, he doesn't see it coming. And I'm like, oh man, it's gonna hit him in the nose or something. Oh shit, man. So I yell out, Prince! But then I'm not supposed to say Prince. I'm like, oh, I don't want to get thrown out of here, so it's more like Prince. So the ball misses him, right? He doesn't catch it, it misses him, and it goes way out of bounds. He runs off and gets it. So he comes back with the ball, and he's laughing, and I'm like, what's so funny? He's like, you didn't know what to call me.
But this room now is
Purple Rain.
Yeah, Purple Rain Museum, essentially.
Well, and that's where the Oscar for Purple Rain was.
The Oscar was in there.
I liked the most special thing in that room to me was I mean, there were notebooks all over
Mhm.
that we saw, but there was one that he had his ideas for Purple Rain in there, and they had copies of the sheets in there, and on top of that notebook, it was faintly written Dreams. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, that's so sweet. You
Yeah.
know, because like I feel like that's what a lot of people do with notebooks. They write like ideas or you know.
The one thing I will say was Gotti was they had the script from Purple Rain,
Mhm.
and it was in a purple bounded book.
Oh right.
Yeah.
I did see that,
That's
yeah.
true.
And I was like, okay, some stuff he was a little ornate on.
Yes.
Like-
That was pretty ornate.
Yeah, and they had like obviously they have 2 of the 3 motorcycles from the movie. We
Yeah,
saw
and
one
this
of the
was the
motorcycles.
stunt one.
That was the stunt one.
Yeah.
And that was in that room with all the Purple Rain stuff. But
And
then
was
there's
it-
another room where they had some vehicles, and it was in that room.
Right.
Yeah.
And
the
so
other one.
I'd always known that he was small, right? Like that. I always talked about he
Yeah.
was like 5'2" or whatever.
Maybe.
I didn't know quite how tiny he was
Like his
until
hips
they
and his
showed.
waist.
His waist
they
may
had
have been
a
20 inches.
They had to have
Yes.
been. So the reason we know that is because there were costumes all over the place, but in the Purple Rain room there was a suit that he had, and his waist was so tiny. It's like in the middle of the room, so you could walk all around it and see it from every angle, and you're just like, how was a grown man with that much energy and power about him that tiny? Like I don't see how he really had to have had a 20-inch waist. Like honestly, it was a marvel to see that. Then we went into, I mean, that whole room had cool, inspiring items, but then we went into the shoe room, which
A special.
Well, actually, you got to say, like, they told us it was like, you got to get, we're going to open this door and you need to get in here
Everyone's
in 30
gotta get in.
seconds.
Yeah.
Seconds, because she clicked a button, and so obviously there was about to be some type of multimedia thing going on. So we go in, the room's kind of dark.
It's all dark, yeah.
And then all of a sudden the music starts, and then the walls start lighting up because they're glass cases for the shoes, but they look like amplifiers and speaker cabinets, the glass cases. And I mean, it was this was when it felt like, okay, this, I've never been to Versailles, but this feels like some Versailles or something like that. It's like, it seemed like we were seeing like Louis XIV's wardrobe,
right,
you know?
Right.
And it
was
300
300 pairs of shoes.
Custom-made shoes.
Custom-made shoes that you've seen.
None of it was Air Jordans. None of it. I mean,
Right.
I mean, I know that a lot of sneakerheads have great collections and stuff,
Yeah,
but like
it was nothing like
this
that.
blows sneakerhead. I mean, this is all like Italian made or
Oh my
British
gosh,
made.
yeah.
There's lots of videos of him with like custom designers.
There's
he
a
had-
Versace display
there's-
where
he had
that
a good-
huge Versace.
He had a good relationship with Donatello
Mhm.
Versace, and like
Man, it was something.
And I wish I remember the guy's name. There's a British guy that was on the video talking about his relationship with Prince, and I think he started off like helping like work on some of his shoes for him, and then helped design, and they had
Yeah.
a really long lasting relationship.
And there were a lot of like written design, like they had some of those up too
Yeah.
in there, and it's all about style. There's this really great quote in there that I had to write down because it was so good. Justina had pointed it out to me, and I loved it too. It was, style is not lusting after someone because they're cool. Style is loving yourself till everyone else does too.
Yeah.
That's a dope quote.
Yeah.
And I bet Tan France would like it too.
Oh, I'm sure.
So many shoes in there, and like it was actually kind of powerful to be in there because there's so much. It one of the things that Versace, the daughter, said was that he embodied not only like style but like the spirit of Versace, and you gather that from seeing all of these things because they're so creative. I mean, like you see all this stuff like Kanye West does now, and it's like, dude, that's a white T-shirt. There's
Yeah.
nothing special or creative about that.
Right.
Like you're maybe trying to push some buttons in some sort of, I don't know, whatever kind of way, but like that's not as creative as this.
It was also special in the same way The Office was special because you saw these scuffed up shoes. It was like
Yeah.
he wore these, he danced in these at this show.
Yeah, you could see the
you know.
point on the
Yeah.
like where the wear was from him spinning. Even there were 2 pairs of roller skates in there that had the same wear.
Yeah.
In a couple of spots. It was dope. That room was something else, and there were even platform flip flops in there, and I was like,
I love those.
it's the only person I'll be okay with wearing flip flops, I
Right.
guess. But they were platforms, so it's like they had a heel on them. Like, how'd you walk in those?
I don't know how you walked in any of those damn shoes. I mean, and,
Yeah.
you know, and the whole time, and it was sad because, you know, a lot of his health problems came from his hips.
Right.
And it was like looking at those shoes, it just felt like you were looking at someone, I mean, not to judge, but it felt like, oh my gosh, like this is why, you know, like this is probably what led you to painkillers.
Right.
And was these shoes and the way you performed. And
Yeah.
And so that
Like,
was
he
kind
just
of hard
went,
to see.
and
Yeah.
didn't sleep, and just was like up all night dancing, doing shows until 5 a.m. sometimes. It's like, yeah, you wore your body out trying to jump off of amplifiers and those pumps. I'll say one other thing about this room, or actually, it's a question. Out of what shoes you saw in there, what would you have if you could? Like, if you could wear one, you could pull it off. Which ones
They'd
are
have to
like...
change the size, but
right, of course.
yeah.
Oh man, I wish I'd known this question before.
Oh,
'cause
I know.
was just
Well,
looking
and
at
this
it.
is a cheat, but it would either. Oh, I really like the Batman ones.
Those were cool. Those were, yeah.
And I really like the ones that he wore to the Academy Awards.
I like those a lot,
But I
too.
would go with the roller skates.
Yeah.
Roller skates were awesome.
The white roller skates. I like
Yeah.
the white roller skates.
I like the Tavis Smiley show
Oh,
shoes.
the white and black shoes?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
those are
look
really-
like a little
yeah.
tuxedo for your feet.
Yes.
And the Grammy ones as well. I wish I could have taken pictures in there of those shoes.
Yeah.
Because there were so many nice ones. So many. And like I tend to go with things that are just like solid colored, whatever. But that room, so the things were so nice that it made me think, maybe I should get some stuff that has a little more color or flair to it. You know, like it inspired me in that way too. Next up was the sound stage. This is when we got our phones back. So I got a few pictures in there. They will also be in the bio on thereitispod.com for this episode. And this is where they filmed Graffiti Bridge and did some stuff for Sign of the Times. And they also filmed the Raven to the Joy Fantastic music video and Grumpy Old Men.
And grumpier.
And Grumpier
Oh
Old
my
Men.
gosh, that was so random to me.
Well, I mean, it wasn't random to me because I live here. So, well, yeah, because I mean, like, 'cause the film takes place on Wabasha. And
I don't know
so-
what that means.
That's a city.
It sounds close by.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, all the interior stuff was filmed at Paisley Park. And I know we were talking about the store earlier, but like the Walter Matthau's character has a cat, and it wasn't in the script. It's because Prince's personal cat liked being on the stage so much and wouldn't leave that they decided just to make Walter Matthau have a cat so they didn't have to get rid of it.
Right. So
Yeah.
if you see that movie and you see that cat, that's Prince's cat.
Yeah. Which I thought was pretty dope.
That's a pretty great trivia. It makes me want to see that movie again.
Yeah. And
I haven't seen the sequel, but
it's not as good as the first one.
Nah, the first one's pretty good. And Margaret.
The second one has Sophia Loren. But,
That's true.
That room, because like there was a room that there's a little like atrium area right before you go into the sound studio, and that when I went to the previous tour, they had the Pegasus grand piano in that room, but they had moved it into the larger room, and that grand piano it's unbelievable. I was just looking it up again. I think it's worth like $350,000.
Jeez.
Oh, I forgot to mention, I think maybe the last cry for me came in the sound stage.
That's where my first cry came.
That's where your first cry came?
Yeah, it was a Super Bowl performance. They showed him doing Purple Rain in the Super
yeah.
Bowl, and because you came and tried to tell me something, and I was just like,
Oh.
shut up, like.
You had been there before. I didn't think you were crying.
But they didn't do that when I went with there. They didn't do that, and so to hear it, because what they did was they had because he would do concerts in the soundstage, and they had it set up like his last concert he did in there. And so they had a huge video screen with amazing sound system playing his performance from the Super Bowl, which is very meaningful for me.
Right.
And so he was doing Purple Rain in the rain. It's in Miami.
I never meant to cause you any sorrow. I never meant to cause you any pain. Purple rain, purple rain. Oh yes. Only wanna see you. Can I play this guitar? That ain't got it. Come on.
And it was just it got to me, and so I was watching it. You were trying to tell me about the gun microphone, and I was like, just let me be in this moment for a minute.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I did get a cry in there. I don't know what, but you know one thing in the shoe room that got me? The shoes from the Raspberry Beret music video.
Oh, yeah.
Told me several times that he didn't like my kind, 'cause I was a bit too leisurely built like she was. She had the nerve to ask me if I planned to do her any harm.
Because they were in the middle where you could like see it really
And-
well. You
and
could stand right above it and look at it.
His outfit in that video is like, it looks like clouds. Like his like a blue
sky.
blue sky with white clouds, and that's what the shoes look like. So
And I love that song so much in that video, and so it's one of the like, if I want to be happy, I listen to that song.
She wore a raspberry beret, the kind you find in a second-hand store. I think I love her.
And so just like being that close to those shoes just like really affected me. I don't know what made me cry, but yeah, 5 cries. Either that was the last one or it's in the soundstage. Pretty sure it must have been the soundstage. And they had a bunch of things in there too. And we got to sit on this big couch, the VIP couch in there. And it was a really, really great experience. Very inspiring. So after the soundstage, we went into the club, the NPG club, and gave some more thoughts on what it was like being in the building. It was so cool that we recorded in Paisley Park, and here's a clip of that. Okay, we're in the NPG Music Club. What an amazing and special experience. How do you all feel?
I don't know. I'm gonna need some time to digest it. We learned a lot.
Yeah.
And we saw a lot.
Yeah, and I got to see way more this time than last time, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And then the fact that like we got to hear some of that music, and obviously like, the unreleased music was pretty phenomenal.
Oh gosh, that was so good. I'm glad I took notes because it is going to take a long time to process. But I think the first and most prominent thing that sticks out for me is that it's like his presence, especially when we got to go into his office.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I had to step in there a couple of times.
Yeah.
And that really is sticking with me. And then the inspiration of how creative he was in every facet. I mean, all the shoes and the costumes.
Shoes were unbelievable.
And how he like made others around him creative because of his ideas, you know?
Yeah. And that is really inspiring. Not just about like, oh, how do you make something? It inspires me on how to be as a person and how I want to live life. So that's
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're standing and we're in Paisley Park.
We're in Paisley Park.
And
that's pretty
really special to record something
really
in
cool.
here.
Yeah.
We recorded in Paisley Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've recorded in Paisley Park.
That's what we can just tell people.
No big deal. No big deal. No big deal.
This is one of the rooms where they said they hosted the Links here.
Yeah, they had a lot of after parties in here. I mean, it's a club. I mean, imagine
it's a club.
Yeah, I mean, imagine having a house where you have 3 studios, a actual sound stage, and then your own club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He lived a life none of us will ever understand.
Well, thank you, Prince. All right. Well, this really was such an inspiring trip, and being in there was so I don't know, it was something special for me. Obviously, it was going to be, and Jessina knew that when she got the tickets. Did it inspire you all?
Yeah, no, I would say so. It's always impressive to me to see how creative people can be, and he is like one of the most creative people to have ever lived, you know. And it was also cool to be in Minneapolis because that's, you know, he's from this area, and, you know, we drove up to First Avenue, which was magic also because Purple Rain came on as soon as we drove up, which was
it was pretty weird.
crazy.
Yeah. And it wasn't like, and it was, because I was driving him through the city, and like, I'm notorious, like, I live in the suburbs, I'm suburb bad as fuck.
Yeah, I didn't plan the playlist this way.
And I was just driving, you know, so I was driving through, and I don't drive through the city a lot, like, certain parts of the city, and I kind of got us there without having a GPS helping me, and I got us to First Ave, and it was like, as soon as we got to the front door of First Avenue, Purple Rain started playing, and so it was like, wow, that's pretty insane.
Something helped us out there with that.
Yeah, so
we couldn't have planned that.
No,
that would have been impossible.
I think visiting there is just a good reminder of, you know, like, if there's stuff you love, make sure that you consume as much of it as you can and enjoy it while you can.
Yeah.
You know, it's a good reminder. You know, life is fleeting, and you know, we only get one shot at this rock. And so, you know, if you've got stuff you love and that you enjoy it while you have it, and you can take part in it, and appreciate the people that do the things that you love, and really don't take it for granted, because you never know when it's going to end.
Yep.
Maybe it's 'cause all gonna die. Better live now. Fuck with people come knocking on your door. Let's go crazy. Let's get nuts.
Yeah, I concur. Definitely going to change and influence, I think, how I move forward. I think with whatever I want to do. I think anytime you have something you can point to say, well, this modeled for me what I want to do, and it gives me the knowledge and know-how on how to try, that's a good thing. I mean, not everyone is going to have the resources that Prince has to make this big estate, but you can at least say, what in my house can be the place where I sit down to get to work and start working hard and not make any excuses and just be excited to do the work. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast to talk about this.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
This has been a really wonderful trip I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Woo!
There it
Which
is.
is probably not going to last long, because we're taking them to a place called the Ice Castle. They're probably going to freeze to death. So
yeah. So if you're hearing this, I'm not dead.
Yes. Or it's the last recording.
Right.
Just like Prince had.
Here we go. Well, there it is.
There it is. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at There It Is Pod, and also go to our YouTube channel and subscribe at There It Is. Go to thereitispod.com for more podcast info. Links in bio. Until next time, be good to each other.
The music for the theme song was created by Neil Brooks. The rap was written and performed by Nick Acevedo. The logo for There It Is was created by Jeff Prater. The There It Is podcast is produced by Jason Farr.